Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second week of the third Blue Oceans International Conference for English teachers in Syria and around the world. Our guest for tonight is Mr. Safwan A, who will be speaking to us from Hamad. Good evening, Safwan.
Good evening, Mr. Safwan.
It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. The pleasure is all mine.
Great. As you might know, Safwan has an MA in Literary Studies, and he is very active in the field of ELT on both on many platforms using YouTube and websites and Facebook and many other platforms. And a lot of people have benefited from Safwan's contribution to the field. Great effort, Safwan, in the field of ELT.
Thank you very much for this introduction.
And today, Safwan is going to talk about teaching, reading, and writing skills. So can't wait to learn from you. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. First of all, let me start by thanking Mr. Safwan for this great opportunity that he has given us for being here and talk about many important topics along with many ELT professionals. So my topic for today is teaching reading and writing skills. Let me quickly share my screen so that we can get started. Okay. So, teaching reading and writing skills. Before I start, let me introduce you to the content of my presentation. The content of my presentation will be divided into two parts. The first part will be about reading, and in this part, I will be talking about three kinds of students we may find in our reading class. And these three students have certain problems that are worth considering. And then I will be talking about some tips, some ideas that can help us deal with such students. In the first or in the second kind or in the second part of my presentation, I'll be talking about writing. And the same, I will be talking about overwhelmed students in writing, and also writing stages and writing strategies. So let's get started. The first and most important question we should be asking ourselves as teachers, as English teachers, is who? Who are we teaching in a reading class? Well, who are the students that can give us some problems in our classroom? I identified three kinds of students we may find in our classroom. These students are different in the ways they view reading, and they have quite a set of problems that are worth considering. Let us have a look at them. The first kind of students is this who lacks knowledge or reading skills. In other words, they don't know how to read, as simple as that. The second kind of readers, or the second kind of students in a reading class is those who think of reading as a solitary act and a one-sided process. So they don't look at reading as an interactive process. They feel that it's only teachers-based or students-based, like this. The third and last kind we may find in our reading class is those who are unengaged or uninterested in reading itself. They do not see themselves in the material that we English teachers are presenting. Of course, we will go through the details of each kind of readers or of each kind of reader in later stages. Now, let's try and focus on the first kind of readers, which is this kind that lacks reading skills or lacks knowledge. Why do we have these kinds of students? Why do we have readers who lack reading skills? Well, I tried to give four main reasons for this, and these reasons are: one, they do not have automatic recognition skills; two, they do not read very well in their first language; three, they lack vocabulary and structural knowledge; and four, they lack world knowledge. Let's start with the first one. One reason a person or a student could be a non-reader is that they do not have automatic recognition skills. What do I mean by recognition skills or automatic recognition skills? What I mean is the the actual letters and the accompanying sounds that are giving students problem. So for example, when they try to read, they have a problem linking or like mixing words and sounds together. This often happens in ESL or among ESL learners because they have different alphabets, as in the case of Arabic. So Arabic learners of English have this problem because they have different alphabets. The Arabic alphabets are different from the English alphabets. That's why they have this problem in recognizing the letters and sounds of English. Sometimes other learners, let's say Spanish learners, have the same problem, but they have similar alphabets. But these alphabets are different in the way they are pronounced, not they are written. So, for example, a Spanish K is different from an English T, and like that. The second reason why we have non-readers in our class is that these very students do not know how to read in their first language. So maybe they are too young or they are old. Actually, I have some students in my, or I had some students in my class who were about 20 or 22 years old, and they still didn't know how to read in Arabic. So this is also another reason that they do not have the reading skills in English. So whether the reason of these students having problems in reading is that they do not have automatic recognition skills, or they may have problems reading in their first language, we come to an understanding that the main problem is that these people or these students are unable to recognize letters and sounds in English. So what do we do with these kinds of students? What do we do with students who cannot mix, or who cannot understand the link between letters and sounds in English? Well, for starters, we as English teachers need to spend some more time teaching phonics rules. Phonics rules. Well, to give you an example, or to give a simple definition of phonics rules, we need to say that phonics rules refers to a method of teaching learners to read by connecting sounds with letters, or a group of letters. But now the teacher, when they try to teach these phonics rules, they encounter a lot of phonics rules. So what do they start with? Well, for starters, we may start by the 7 major phonics rules introduced by May and Elliot. Let's have a quick look at them. The first rule is the C rule. We can tell them that there's a difference between hard C in cat and the soft C in city. I know that these rules are general, are not general, and they cannot be applied to all words, but it is a start to help readers in their reading stages. The second rule is the G rule. The hard G from gate is different from the soft G in gym. 3, the VC rule. A short vowel sound is usually followed by a consonant, digraph, or blend. For example, bat, bath, and mask. Of course, let me try to explain this point a little bit. Here, the vowel sound in these 3 examples is ah. In the first word, the sound or the consonant sound is t, as in bat. The second one is a digraph, and a digraph is a combination of 2 consonant sounds that result in one sound, as in the case of bath. TH becomes. And the third one is a blend. A blend is a combination of 2 sounds that result in also, or that results in having 2 sounds, as in the case of mask. Number 4, the VV rule. When 2 vowels are together, usually the first vowel is long and the second vowel is silent. The examples are boat, seat, like this. Now, number 5, the VCE rule. 1-syllable words that end with a consonant and E have a long vowel sound, but of course the E is silent. For example, nice, plate, vote. Of course, here the example of long vowels is the example of diphthongs, I, A, and O. Number 6, the CV rule. Use the long vowel sound when there's only one vowel in a word or syllable. For example, he, go, and mine. Notice that in these three words, there's only one vowel, and that's why it is long. Number 7, the last one, is the R rule. R changes the vowel before them. For example, cat becomes car. But as we are teaching phonics rules, we teachers understand that there is a danger in focusing on sound and letter recognition. And of course, you may probably know the danger. The danger is when we focus or when we over-focus on phonics and phonics rules, students will be bored later on in the class, and they will not think of language as it is connected with meaning or culture. They will think of language as it's connected with sounds only. That's why, as a very good tip, try to teach phonics, but don't over teach phonics. Try to give them what the necessary things that are important. Okay, so we finished with the first two reasons of why we have non-readers in our class, and let me remind you of them. The first one is that they do not have automatic recognition skills, and the second one is that they do not even know how to read their first language. The third reason why we have non-readers in our classroom is that they lack vocabulary and structural knowledge. Now, you will see some opposing views to the other past slides that I talked about. Well, some teaching or some reading professionals say that teaching vocabulary may be more useful than teaching phonics. If you remember that in the last slide, we talked about the importance of teaching phonics in order to have students or to let students have reading skills. Now, reading specialists or reading professionals, some reading professionals say that no, teaching vocabulary may be more useful than teaching phonics, and not being able to read is linked more directly to the fact that students do not yet know what words means. So for example, if I come across a student in my reading class and this student does not know how to read very well, this means that they do not know how to read because they do not even know what the words mean. They do not know that this word is a verb, or this word is a subject, this word is an adjective, not because they do not know how to realize the connection between sounds and letters. They argue that it is easier for learners to learn the entire word than rather than trying to decode letters and sounds. So, I don't know, it is a controversial topic. We will talk about it later. So, anyways, whether these people focus on sounds or these people focus on vocabulary and structural knowledge, we come to the fourth and most important idea or most important reason why we have readers or non-readers in our class. Okay, somebody is raising.
صحيح.
Yes. Yes, is there a problem?
To highlight the fact we are still on the first slide.
Oh, okay. Let me check. Let me check, please. That's weird. So, wait. Oh, maybe it's my bad. Okay. So is that better right now? Can you see now?
Let's see reading strategies.
And did I'm trying to change slides. Are they changing right now?
No, they are not.
Okay, there might be. Let me try something else. Just a sec. Okay. I think that will work right now. Okay, I'll try to do this maybe. Do you see right now?
We see your PowerPoint.
Like this, for example, if I flip, if I go back and forth.
It is changing, yes.
Okay, so the last point that I was talking about is vocabulary and structural knowledge, and I said that some teaching or reading professionals argue that it is easier to teach students or reading students the entire word that rather than just letting them focus on reading or on phonics rules. Well, I said in the end that whether you're focusing on phonics rules, or some reading professionals are focusing on phonics rules, and some others are focusing on vocabulary knowledge, both sides agree that it is important for reading students to have world knowledge. And one of the main reasons why we have non-readers in our reading classes is that because they lack world knowledge. Well, whether we like it or not, a knowledge of anything or everything helps students to read. And the more they know about the world, the greater their capacity at prediction. I've come across the word prediction, and I will try to explain what I mean by prediction in a reading class. Prediction is one of the most important strategies that we English teachers must use in a reading class in order to engage students in the reading material. That's why at any point of our reading class, we should encourage our students to practice the skill of predicting by deriving meaning from their understanding of the word's relation to the outside world. Let me give you an example of one reading class that I was teaching. The reading class was about holidays and holiday vocabulary, and it was about two girls who went on holiday to Venice, I remember. And the holiday was a disaster because some friend did something bad. So before I told students to read the text, there was a highlighted sentence above the text that said, "I'd love to go back to Venice one day, but without Linda. I'd love to go back to Venice one day, but without Linda." I started to ask students about this very sentence. What do you think? What is happening? Before we read, I told them to predict. So one student answered me, "Well, I think that both girls went on holiday to Italy, to Venice." Another student said, "Well, I think Linda did something bad to Laura." And a third student said, "Well, the holiday was a disaster because of Linda." These answers that my students answered said are what we call prediction. You can even go further in the process of prediction by asking them questions like, "What do you think will happen in the end?" What do you think is happening? What do you think Linda did that made Laura so angry? And so forth. That's why it is important to have this world knowledge in order to practice the skill of prediction. If you don't have world knowledge, if you don't have story knowledge, then a reading class will be confusing to your readers and will be also boring. So these are the 4 main reasons why we have non-readers in our class. Let me remind you of them because, as Aram said, you didn't see my slides. The first one is we don't have, or students do not have automatic recognition skills. The second one is that these students do not even know how to read in their first language. The third reason is they lack vocabulary and structural knowledge. And the fourth reason is that they do not have world knowledge. Now, let me just start by telling you about some reading strategies that really help me as a teacher in my reading class. There are great tips to use to help understand the text. We can scan for information and look up words in the dictionary, ask questions, and compare information from the story with information elsewhere, or form opinions and think critically about what they read. Now, up to the second kind of readers that we have in a reading class. The first one was this person who lacked reading skills or lacked knowledge. Now, the second kind are those who do not connect reading with active strategies. To put it simply, these students do not see reading as an active or interactive process. They see it as a one-sided process that is only from the teacher or from the student, or they do not see any connection between them and the teachers. They do not see any connection between them and the text itself. That's why these students need to see reading as an interactive, and should be engaged not only with the text, but with others around them as well. So how do we do this? How do we convince these students that reading or a reading class is interactive? Of course, we should tell them, or we should view the reading class in terms of a very simple tripartite structure: pre-reading, reading, and post-reading activities. All of these activities, when done and applied well in a reading class, can make the class or the reading class come alive. Let's have a look at pre-reading activities. Before we read, what can we do as teachers, as English teachers? What can we do? Of course, there are a number of strategies that we can do. Let me give you 3 pre-reading strategies. Connect the students' prior knowledge to the text by asking them, have you ever questions? Pre-teach vocabulary and tell a personal story that is similar to the reading. I will get back again to the same reading class that I was teaching. I remember that I entered the class with a frowning look on my face, and all the students began wondering, oh my God, what is wrong with Mr. Subhi? What is wrong with Mr. Subhi? Why is he putting on the angry face or the sad face? I looked at them and I said, you may be wondering why I'm angry or sad today. I will tell you why. Well, last week I went on holiday with one of my friends to Latvia, but unfortunately the holiday was a disaster. And do you know why? Do you know why? Well, because my friend was so mean. So I told a story by telling a personal story. I said this story, which was a similar story to the text that we were about to read. Also, you can tell, or you can begin this class as a pre-reading strategy by asking them questions like this. Have you ever been on holiday with someone and that someone made your holiday a disaster? This way, you are connecting their prior knowledge to the text by asking them, have you ever questions? Also, since I told a similar story, similar story to the text that I was about to read, I included some of the vocabulary that I was going to teach them, such as disaster, such as paradise or wonderful, whatever. So these 3 strategies are very important and can make the reading class come alive. Now, up to the reading activities, of course, when you have your reading planned very well, then this reading will come alive, but it's not enough yet. You need to include some reading activities that will even make the reading lesson better and better. What can we do during the reading activity? We may invite students to look for certain key facts, take notes, highlight interesting sections to share later in the class, pausing, asking questions, inviting students to predict or share opinions. So for example, during the class or during the reading class that I was teaching, I was asking the student to read, and then I told him to stop at a sentence that goes like this, or that went like this. And she didn't even want to pay for the apartment. And she didn't even want to pay for the apartment. I stopped the student and I told them, please highlight this sentence. Why didn't she want to pay for the apartment? Is there something wrong with Linda? So here I am inviting them to highlight some interesting sections. I asked them a question. I asked them even to predict what is going to happen or some interesting information that they will find later after they finish reading. Now, up to the post-reading activities, after reading is done, you as a teacher are not done. There are a number of things that we can do. And actually, at this stage of a reading class, it is the perfect time for you to do wrap-up activities and focus on the main ideas and evaluative questions. Here, we can assess how much students understood us, how much students got our ideas, if they understood everything that was told in the reading class or not. It is the place where reading can really come alive. Think of the questions that you may ask them. Answer, compare, what do you think? Fill in the space, fill in the blanks. All these post-writing or post-reading activities can make the reading feel like an interactive process, and it's not it won't be as one-sided as this kind of student thinks. Now, up to the third and last kind of students in a reading class, those students may not have a love of reading. Those students form the most kind of readers, or the most modern kind of readers that we find in our reading class. These students are still finding themselves. They still haven't found who they are, and may not see themselves in the material that you are presenting. So for example, they may have reading skills. Yeah, they know how to read. And also they may think that reading is active. But these students do not see that what you are reading is fun or is for them. So that's why we call these students unengaged or uninterested in reading itself. In simple words, these students don't care. So what do we do with students who just don't care? What do we do? Actually, there are three important strategies that we can use in order to deal with such students. The first one is immediacy. Immediacy. What I mean by immediacy is that we focus on the learners, or we focus on the context that learners are most familiar with. We focus on themselves. We focus on what they like. We focus on themselves as a person. They still haven't found who they are. That's why it's very important to get them into the reading class, to make them interested in the reading class, is to focus on them. What do? We start the lesson by telling something about them. For example, I had such a student in my reading class, and I entered the class, and this student was uninterested. He just didn't care at all about my reading class. So I was teaching this very text or reading text on holidays. So as I started giving the lesson, I noticed that he is unengaged and he's uninterested. So what did I do? I flipped all the reading class, and I started telling students something like this. Well, did you know that your friend Muhammad once went on holiday with a friend, and this friend was really mean? Do you remember, ya Muhammad? Do you remember? So the minute I mentioned his name, he was like sitting like this and looking up at this at the ceiling, and then when he heard his name, he was like, yes, I remember this story. So here I caught his attention. And that's why many reading professionals say that reading selections that are generated from life experiences, whether they are real or imagined, by the way, all the students are more fun and more engaging and more interesting. Imagine the same thing that we used to do as students. If we didn't like a teacher, or if we didn't like what the teacher was presenting in a class, what did we used to do? We used to just sleep over the desk or not pay attention. But whenever the teacher mentioned us in one of the examples, we went like this and looked at other students, and yeah, the teacher mentioned me in an example. So at this point, I caught the student's attention by relating to himself indeed. So that's why the first step is to make things meaningful, or personally meaningful, and immediately helpful. Now, the second way we can deal with students who may not have a love of reading or with unengaged readers is autonomy. Autonomy. What do I mean by autonomy? What I mean by autonomy is that you allow students to find literature that reflects their current interests and ideas, but of course within limits. So if these students do not like what you are presenting in a reading class, you can sit and spend some more time exploring your students' interests, your students' likes and dislikes, and then come up with a nice and moderate solution that can make your reading class go on, and also can make your students pay more attention to the class. So if you do this, then you will get the attention of students and also make them feel autonomous, that they are choosing the material that you will present. The third and final tip for dealing with students who just don't care is future authenticity. Future authenticity. What I mean by future authenticity is that all the readings that we choose in a reading class should come from the real world whenever possible. They should come from the real world whenever possible. They should not be imaginary or not lifelike. So, for example, if you are teaching a reading class, you need to give your students information that is not only real, but also one information that they can imagine in a future context. I remember I was teaching a reading class, and I was teaching a reading about the top airports or the most beautiful airports in the world. And believe me, this reading was so boring. The reading itself, of course, was so boring. So what did I do? I started with the first airport, which was Singapore Airport, I think. In Singapore Airport, I told my students, of course, this is something that is not so interesting, and because it's not linked to a future situation. That's why I told them something like, well, you see, some of you may go to this place one day. You may travel, you may go to Singapore. So let me tell you more a little bit about it. So the way you go and explain this reading class by relating it to a future context or context is what makes students engaged and is what makes students be interested again in the material that you are presenting. This is all about the reading class. Now let's move on to the writing skill. Of course, reading or writing in any language can be difficult. So how about if we talk about it in a foreign language? It can be more difficult if we are trying to write in a foreign language. That's why students may feel overwhelmed when it comes to writing. So why do our students feel overwhelmed when it comes to writing. Yes, I know that it's writing in another language or in a foreign language, but there are also deeper reasons why these students will feel overwhelmed. Actually, I identified three kinds or three reasons why students feel overwhelmed. The first reason is they may fear that they have no ideas. Second reason, they may feel that they will not meet the teacher's expectations. And the third reason, they may fear that their ideas are terrible. Again, they have no ideas, but they may not meet the teacher's expectations, and their ideas may be terrible. Of course, we will come through or come through each of these reasons later on. So now, as teachers, what do we do in order to help students be not overwhelmed? What do we do to help overwhelmed students? Well, at first, we need to tell students, we need to explicitly say that writing is not a one-sided, writing is a process. It's not a product. It's not something that can be done in one simple setting. It is a complex activity that can be aided by a lot of activities, by a lot of stages, such as, for example, pre-writing, writing, and post-writing activities. That's why when you tell these students about this fact, they may try to feel less overwhelmed. Now, again, and before I talk about what should we as English teachers do in order to help students in the writing process, I need to say something, and this thing is very important. A good amount of thinking, reading, and speaking must precede the writing process. So if I am asking a student to write an assignment, a writing assignment, how on earth will my student begin writing if he does not think about the writing assignment? If he does not read about the writing assignment? If I, for example, gave him a writing assignment about nuclear energy, for example, and he does not know a thing about nuclear energy, what should he do? Do you think that he will just sit down and pick up his pen and paper and start writing? Of course not. He must read about this topic in order to gain some ideas. And also, after he gains some ideas, or after, sorry, they gain some ideas, we can, or they can discuss these ideas with their classmates, with more expert people on this field, and see if their ideas are good or not, and if they need any modifications. So now, what do we do as teachers? I told you that we have three main reasons why students feel overwhelmed. And these are, they may fear they have no ideas at all. If our students feel that they have no ideas at all, then what is my job? What is my duty as a teacher? First of all, I need to stimulate background information to help connect understood information to new one. And this is somehow related to having world knowledge in the writing stage, in the reading stage. Now, I understand that students have something. If they have something, then they need to have their ideas stimulated, to have their prior knowledge about the topic be stimulated. That's why they can have this information or these ideas out and then try to connect them with the new information. And also, since they may have no ideas, or your students may have no idea, tell them to start thinking about the topic they are going to write about. There is nothing wrong in sitting and waiting and not doing anything when you have a writing assignment. Some students feel that if they sit for about 5 or 10 minutes and they still haven't written anything, they feel like, oh my God, we're not gonna write anything. No, it's simple. It's simple to think and think and think and think about the topic that you are going to write about until you get out or you have some ideas that you can write about. So it's not something that they should be embarrassed about. Well, the other reason why students feel overwhelmed in writing was that they do have some ideas, but they think or they fear that they may have no ideas whatsoever. Sorry, their ideas may not meet the teacher's expectations. In other words, These students may fear that they cannot get into the teacher's head. What does this teacher want from the writing assignment? So if your students have this feeling, or if you find out that the reason why your students feel overwhelmed in writing is that they do not know what you want, then here you should do some things. What are these things? First of all, you need to create clear writing assignments. You need to create clear writing assignments and rubrics. What do I mean by this? For example, if you have a writing assignment, you should tell them every little detail that you want in the writing assignment. You need to tell them all about your instructions, all about the things that you need. For example, how many words? Is it handwritten? Is it typed? The size of the margins? If you want them to use certain vocabulary, certain transition signals, whatever. Tell them everything, because this feeling of specificity gives students comfort, because they think that, okay, this is what the teacher told us, that's why we will abide by what the teachers have told us. Okay, and remember, if you don't write it down in your instructions or your rubrics, it's unfair to grade students on it. So for example, you gave a writing assignment, but you forgot or you didn't write that you wanted handwritten, for example, from your students, and one student wrote it typed. Do you think it's fair to tell your student that it's wrong? Of course not, because you didn't write it. So it's unfair to grade your students on it. Number three, as a teacher, what we should do as teachers is that if your students, or if one of your students does not know what you really want, tell them it's okay. It's normal, people, to share your ideas with others. Maybe this student understands the teacher very well, understands the instructions of the teachers very well, or of the teacher very well. That's why it's good to go to your friend and tell him, okay, or her, of course, is this what the teacher really wanted? Because I'm kind of confused. I don't know really what he or she wanted. So he may help you or she may help you. So it's easy. That's why all the time ask your students to share their writings with others, so that if they miss out on something important that you mentioned in your writing assignment, instruction, or rubrics, they may not have low marks or low grades on it. So, yes. Since we're talking about the idea of writing and then rewriting, and then it's okay for students to write. Now, students have written their assignment, for example, or their topic. Is it like this? Is it finished? That's it. There's no need to go back, or no need to see what you have written, no need to edit, no need to add some ideas, no need to delete some ideas, no need to consult these ideas with others. No. That's why it's very important to shed some light on the idea of recursive writing. What is the meaning of recursive writing? In recursive writing, students review their first draft and talk it over with each other and make changes. That's why I told you to tell your students that writing is not a product, it's a process. Pre-writing, writing, and post-writing. So after they finish their first draft, they don't need to give it to the teacher immediately. They can maybe sit with others and say, okay, this is my draft. You may have a look at it. Maybe I missed out something, and maybe I can check yours. If you have a problem with the writing, we can cooperate together. Create this feeling of cooperation between your students so that they can help each other. This is what we call in LT peer review, as you know. So why is it important to do this? Because if you don't do this, you will more likely have a lot of mistakes in your students' assignments. That's why it's important for students, of course, to go back to where they started and take out ideas they don't like, and come up with different ideas, and also change the order of these ideas. Now, if they do this, if they go back to their first draft, they changed it, and they did some changes to the order, and they added some ideas. This way, they will have a smooth writing. a smooth writing. And what I mean by smooth writing is excellent writing. Now, if or on the road of students to having excellent writing, we teachers, if we are the people who are reviewing our students' first drafts, what should we do as teachers? Well, at first, we need to go global. What do I mean by going global? I mean that if our student gives us their draft and tells us, okay, this is my draft, teacher, you may want to have a look at it. Try to go global. Try to focus on the ideas. Try to focus on the organization, not on the grammatical items. Because, as you know, we teachers are notorious for focusing on grammar and on punctuation, on the grammatical items in general, on conventions, and forget about the ideas, forget about the organization. If we do this, then we will more likely, of course, have a lot of mistakes, and the students will feel overwhelmed like this. So what I'm saying is, at the beginning of reviewing your students' drafts, do not fix grammar until you are sure that your students' writing are organized and coherent. Also, another idea you can let your students have smooth writing is that you let them write. You let them challenge you with their ideas, and you don't just be this kind of teacher who always looks at a student's paper and says, "No, this is not what I wanted. You should write this. Delete, 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 delete. You should write blah 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 and blah 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 and blah blah blah." Don't do this. This kind of imposing your writing and imposing your way, imposing your ideas on students is a very big mistake. Actually, it's called appropriation. Appropriation is when you, how shall I say this, is when you hijacks the students' ideas and makes them your own. Now, I'm not saying that you should not tell your students to follow up your instructions. Yes, students need and should follow your instructions of the writing assignments. But at the same time, we should never restrain students' creativity and thinking. So we need to find this balance between what we ask students to write and allowing them to unleash their creativity and thinking. Now, before I talk about the writing stages, pre-writing, writing, and post-writing, I want to introduce you to the 6 traits of writing. And actually, these 6 traits of writing are associated with each of the 3 stages of writing. These traits are ideas, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, conventions. Again, ideas, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, and conventions. If we want to apply these 6 traits of writing to each of the writing stages, we will think of ideas, organization, and voice as found in the pre-writing stage. Because in the pre-writing stage, our main focus will be on what? Will be on the ideas that our students will share, on the thoughts and how these thoughts, how these ideas will be organized, and of course, the purpose and the audience of writing. What is the meaning of audience? The audience, or the purpose, or the voice is or refers to the student's teacher. The voice refers to the writer and reader's connection. So in this pre-writing stage, the focus will be on ideas and how these ideas are organized, and also on the voice. Now, in the writing stage,
excuse me.
yes.
Yeah, we still have about 2 minutes, dear.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be finished.
Dr. Nazir is already in the waiting room.
No problem. So in the writing stage, the focus will be also, of course, on ideas, on organization, and on voice, but also we need to consider the best vocabulary. We need to choose our words and how these words will fit in the sentences that we are about to write. In the post-writing stage, also we will focus on the ideas, on the organization, and we may add or delete some ideas, and we may change the organization. And also we will look at some of the words that we use and also change them. But the main focus in the post-writing stage will be on conventions, on grammar, on punctuation, on these things that come last. So finally, I just want to say, what is good writing? Good writing can be summarized in 4 points. Good writing is good reading. You have to read a lot before you start writing. Good writing is good thinking. You have to think about what you are going to write. And of course, part of thinking is brainstorming or free writing and some other techniques. Lastly, good writing is good speaking. You will never be a good writer unless you share your ideas and talk about them with others in the classroom. This is all I have for today. Thank you very much for listening. And I don't know if we have some time for questions. Do we, Mr. Safwan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Subhi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I have taken like a lot of time.
No, it was just okay, and was very informative. It's always wonderful to have you, and I very much love the way you are doing things and the thing that the modern things and the innovative things that you keep doing in the field of ELT.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It all comes back to you.
Right. So thank you very much, Subhi, and thanks everyone. Now we're going to lead the meeting, and you can get back in 1 minute to be with Dr. Nazir Ali, who will be speaking to us from Pakistan about things related to publishing your work and reflecting on the experience of English language teaching in Pakistan. So until very soon.